So let's talk about this, because it seems preposterous to me that we would have non-citizens voting in this country, that you should have to be a citizen to vote, and yet the Democrats are pushing it.
You know, it was shocking to me too, Eric, but the United States Constitution and 48 of 50 state constitutions say you do not have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, which is a shocking thing. I took it for granted. I went back and looked at all the state constitutions again and again, and that's true. In fact, Kamala Harris's California, Bernie Sanders' Vermont, Elizabeth Warren's Massachusetts, Kirsten Gillibrand's New York, even Michelle Obama's Illinois are all places that are currently allowing, in certain places, non-citizens to legally vote, or are trying to have non-citizens legally vote.
That, I mean, just to me, it blows my mind. It seems preposterous that a non-citizen could participate in shaping the American democracy.
It is. It's a crazy idea. So we have a solution, and we have a video. Let's play the video.
What do the home states of presidential hopefuls Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Michael Bloomberg, and Kirsten Gillibrand, and even Michelle Obama have in common? Well, they each come from states that have pursued allowing non-citizens to legally vote. Cities from San Francisco to Chicago to Montpelier, Vermont, even 11 cities in Maryland are currently allowing non-U.S. citizens to legally vote in their elections. And more efforts are underway in Boston, in New York, and elsewhere, with liberal activists calling non-citizen voting the newest civil right.
Now, breaking news. The U.S. Congress has just voted in favor of illegal immigrant voting.
How is this possible? Surprisingly, the United States Constitution and nearly every state constitution does not specifically require U.S. citizenship to legally vote. You heard correctly. These constitutions do not require U.S. citizenship to legally vote. But that's why we need the Citizen Voters Amendment. It will ensure that only U.S. citizens can legally vote in our elections. Nearly every state constitution, including the states currently allowing non-citizens to legally vote, says the same thing. Every citizen shall be an elector. This inclusive phrase in state constitutions clarifies only who can vote, but not who cannot legally vote. The Citizen Voters Amendment fixes this with just a 3-word change. It strikes the words "every citizen" and inserts the words "only a citizen." This constitutionally ensures that only citizens can legally vote in that state's elections. In just the first 3 weeks, 250,000 Floridians have signed the Florida Citizen Voters Initiative petition to put that issue on the 2020 ballot. That is a tremendous start, but we do need your help to ensure the Citizen Voters Amendment makes the ballot in Florida and in other battleground states, including Colorado, Maine, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio, and beyond. Our goal is to have every state allow only legal citizens to vote. It's time all elections in the United States include only citizens of the United States. It's time for the Citizen Voters Amendment.
I'm assuming it's one of those things where when the constitutions were drafted, no one even considered, well, non-citizens can't vote, so why put it in? But now you've got left-wing activists as judges who are saying, it doesn't say citizen.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening. Again, the language is similar throughout 48 states. It says every citizen shall be an elector. And again, that's an inclusive phrase. It says who can, and that's the loophole that the left is using in the states already pursuing it, and more states as well. Even Johnson County, Iowa is pursuing allowing non-citizens to vote in Iowa. So this is really happening. We want to take this back to the ballot in as many places as possible because we know the vast majority of Americans think this is nuts. This is crazy. In fact, one of the most difficult things we have with this issue is getting people to believe that the Constitution doesn't really say it. Oh, it's got to be in there. Look again. People tell me. It's not. And this is what's happening. They do call it the newest civil right. Their idea is we may or may not have a problem with non-citizens voting illegally. Their answer is, well, make it legal. Problem solved. So Our goal is to make the ballot in as many places as possible. Last November, North Dakota voted on their North Dakota Citizen Voters Amendment. Again, just a 3-word fix. Strikes the word every citizen, replaces with only a citizen. 66% of the ballot box came back in favor of the amendment. That's the poll that really matters, is when it goes to the ballot box. Overwhelmingly, people are for it. We have had the Alabama legislature refer it to the ballot, so it will be on the ballot there in Alabama. We've now gathered 1.6 million signatures in Florida, more than any initiative in the history of Florida, to qualify the ballot there. We've begun our campaign to gather signatures in Colorado this past week. We gathered over 10,000 signatures in just the first 4 days in Colorado, on the way to get 200,000 by November to qualify there. And we want to get this by either citizen petition or by legislative referral on as many states in 2020 as possible. What a great opportunity to put an issue out there that the majority of people of all kinds will be in favor of, but will particularly activate the conservative base to get out and vote. And that's what our goal is.
Well, and let me talk about that with you. With the polling, we keep hearing about suburban women, and they're not necessarily fans of the president, according to the polls, and it's actually suburban unmarried women as opposed to suburban married women. But we also, my understanding is, we're seeing that even polls suggest this is a way that motivates them to consider conservatives and conservative policy.
Sure. The first thing you have to do in all politics, you know this, Eric, you have to win the right to be heard. And you do that by presenting positions that people naturally will bond onto. We asked the inverse question in a survey. Are you more or less likely to vote for a presidential candidate that favored allowing non-U.S. citizens to legally vote? Among suburban college-educated women, 33% say they're less likely to vote for that presidential candidate. 37% said they would never vote for that presidential candidate. That's minus 70. But this issue is in majorities amongst all demographics. It's important that the final signatures of our 1.6 million signatures gathered in Florida were naturalized citizens. Our first petition in Colorado was from a naturalized citizen. They, amongst all others, understand what it takes to win and earn that right to vote in this country. And we welcome them. And we want them to vote legally. Having earned the right to vote, come here legally, taken a U.S. citizenship test, waited in line, and earned their right. They are galled by the notion that someone else can simply show up and vote.
You know, I'm thinking about this locally here in Georgia, where the Democrats think that they can pick up 15 seats and take control of our state house. Seems like this is a no-brainer to get the Democrats on record in Georgia and perhaps amend the Constitution to put this through the legislature here.
In fact, we have spoken to some people here, and that is one of our plans is Georgia. Stacey Abrams, who's your governor. Oh, wait, she's not your governor.
Yeah. She's on sabbatical to grift.
Yes. She has come out and said, and is recorded saying, she favors allowing non-citizens to vote in Georgia. Now, the vast majority of Georgians are going to think that's pretty nuts. But this is their plan. Open the borders, allow everyone in, give them health care, give them education, give them the right to vote. But I want to tell you something. We are opposed to Canadians voting in U.S. elections. We are opposed to Germans voting.
You could have ended the period after Canadians.
That's exactly right. We think all elections in the United States should be limited to citizens of the United States, which is why, one more thing. In addition to the state-by-state campaigns that we're doing, we do think there should be a federal constitutional amendment to make sure this is clarified and codified. And we have a 23-word proposal for an amendment. See if you can follow. All elections for public office and public initiative in the United States shall be limited to citizens of the United States. 23 words.
Pretty straightforward.
Again, most people think it's already there. Go and look. It isn't. It's time that it is.
So, undoubtedly, a position like this in a sane republic would be able to advance in our Congress. With Nancy Pelosi in charge of the House, well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in charge of the House, probably can't get through because it's not sane.
Sure.
You've mentioned Florida and some of these other states. What is the lay of the land right now with this?
Well, We're just now beginning, but we're on a great roll. Again, we've got it done in Arizona, by the way, was the only state that already had it in their constitution. Happens to be my home state. They happen to do it right. Good for Arizona. We've won it in North Dakota. We're on the ballot in Florida. We're on our way to the ballot in Alabama and in Colorado. Georgia is a place we're looking to do this. Nevada, Montana, Michigan, Ohio, Maine are all places we are hoping to get to the ballot.
Just, if you could, just tangentially to some degree, can you talk about what goes into getting on the ballot in states?
There are 21 states that allow citizens to gather petitions to place an amendment or a statute directly to the voters in that state. Other states, you can change the Constitution by going through the legislature. Some states take a simple majority of the House and Senate, it goes to the ballot, such as in Arizona. Other states, it takes a larger measure, like 2/3, as it does in Maine. Some states, it takes 2 legislatures to pass it and put it on the ballot, like in Iowa. So it is a long and arduous process, but in particularly places where we have majorities, where we would love to have and see others come and join us. Alabama is a good example. The Alabama legislature pushed this forward. It was a unanimous vote in the House and in the Senate, first time ever on that. But 14 walked off the floor and refused to vote. We think it would be a great idea for the U.S. Senate to take up and have a vote on this, on that constitutional amendment. Would it pass? Not sure. Love to see the roll call on that. What would Kamala Harris from California, that's allowing it, vote? What would Bernie Sanders do? What would Elizabeth Warren do? What would others do who are running for the presidency? About time that they go on record, don't you think?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Okay,
one second.
yeah.
And by the way, there is a federal statute, but only a statute that does not allow non-citizens to vote in federal elections. Passed long ago in 1996. All right? Does anyone have a doubt who witnessed the last presidential debate? Think if the Democrats control the presidency, the House, and the Senate, that they would not rescind that statute and allow non-citizens to vote? Anyone have a doubt about that?
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things that I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I know some of the people who will be participating in the September Democratic debate. It seems like this is a valid question to ask I mean, they're asking them, should we give free abortions and health care to illegal aliens? What about letting them vote? It'd be interesting to see. Along those lines, I guarantee you, in fact, you're probably running into this already, critics are going to say, well, this is just a way to mobilize Republicans in November. I mean, what's your response to that?
Anytime a politician stands next to 65 to 75% of their voters, they tend to do better. I just think that American people deserve to have this. This is good for America, not just Republican Party, Democratic Party, whatever else. This is good for America, and it's about time we stand up and say that all elections in the United States are limited to citizens of the United States. The fact that we even have to say it is perhaps showing what our times are. But it's about time that we codify and clarify in both state constitutions and the U.S. Constitution that our elections are for us.
Amen. Now, you can definitely, I would clap that. Let me bring this to the states like Georgia that don't have ballot initiative options. Right. What do we as residents of states, as citizens of states do to try to get our legislatures to move forward? Because I mean, I'm listening to you talk on this, and it just seems like this is something that every state should do. And if
Absolutely.
I in Georgia could get the legislature to take it up, I would be willing to do that.
Sure. I would urge everyone, wherever you're from, Georgia or anywhere else, to speak with the House and Senate leadership in your state. Contact us. We'd be happy to help you with this. And say, look, 3 words. Only a citizen shall be an elector. And to encourage them to, for the betterment of their state, for the betterment of their country, both on policy and in politics to put this through the legislature, place it on the ballot. Come on in, the water's fine. You see what has happened in the other places. If we get it to the ballot, I am highly confident we're going to win and win big. And that would be a protection against what's trying to be done, again, by the left. They're dead serious about this. And they are calling it the newest civil right.
Yeah, I'm sitting here kind of chuckling to myself because in Georgia we have a law where the Secretary of State's office has to prepare a description of what the constitutional amendment is, because sometimes the wording of the constitutional amendment can be so convoluted. I can imagine the description. Only a citizen will be allowed to vote in elections, and leaving people scratching their heads thinking, why isn't this already the law?
Precisely. Which is also why we do want to have a communication campaign to have people understand, hey, this is needed because of what they're doing. We are simply responding to what they're doing, all right? This was not a fight we picked. They picked the fight. We are going to respond, and we're going to defend our notions that American elections are for Americans. When it comes to a debate on this, if Stacey Abrams wants to stand on this stage or any other and tell people why non-citizens should legally vote, I'll cede my time.
Now, beyond the states that you're already working in, there's still another number of states where you can do citizen initiatives as opposed to having to go through the legislature. If people are in those states, what should they be thinking about trying to do?
Well, give us a call, and we'd be glad to help and work with you. If we can do it through the legislature, that's a lot cheaper. You know, a campaign to get this to the ballot, even in the smallest of states, is $500,000. In the larger states, it could be as much as $5 million. That's a lot of money. But the risk reward is worth it. I'll give you one other thing. In our polling, we are in majorities amongst every demographic and geographic subset. But we are only a plurality amongst those under the age of 30. This is one of those issues. If we do not do this now, it becomes exponentially more difficult later and over time, unless trends change, and sometimes they do. This will be a battle that we'll lose later on. We need to do this now. The time is now. Already, California, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, Maryland, Maine, even Iowa are looking or have already allowed non-citizens to vote. If we don't stop it, the trend will go against us.
You know, I'm going to pause you for a minute and do a plug for the September group that Tim is with is involved in giving folks the .vote email address. Can you imagine, particularly if you're a citizen in a state where you can do citizen initiatives, to be able to have a unique email address like that and to be able to point out that, you know, it's not just you and me who can get this, but a whole lot of people who shouldn't be able to vote. If you haven't gotten one of those, make sure you go by the registration table and get that email address. It's a great way to use, particularly those of you who are in states with citizen initiatives or even petitioning the legislature, to highlight this issue.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned the federal government. I think it's absolutely true that it would, I mean, considering the things that Mitch McConnell does block and the things he pushes forward, that it would be a great way to get these Democratic candidates. Do you know of any discussions to try to get something like this through the Senate?
We haven't done that yet. That's our next opportunity, is when the Congress comes back after the August break, is to go meet with key legislators in Washington and to get that moving. We wanted to make sure that we could show, before we did that, progress in the states. The fact that this can be done in the states successfully, how it's presented. And again, one of the elements that is so crystal clear to us is we begin these campaigns in the states with some of our most fervent supporters. And that means people who have come to this country legally, have put their time in, have studied and passed the U.S. civics test to become a naturalized legal U.S. citizen and win that right to vote. They are some of the most impassioned people for this issue, and we invite them and encourage their participation.
You know, it's funny you say that. I find that also on the immigration issue, that staunchly naturalized citizens who have immigrated into this country tend to have very strong feelings on the immigration issue, and they tend to align more with the president than the media would have you believe.
That's exactly right.
I can imagine so that the trouble and pain that it took them to try to immigrate here, become citizens,
Right.
take the citizenship test, answering questions that your average 10th grader in America probably can't in a public school to be able to get that citizenship. And yeah, it seems like this would be something that would definitely build a unique coalition in the country.
Yeah, and you think of it, I mean, this is a great audience who probably has had the opportunity to travel overseas. Anyone ever stop and think about voting in Canada's election? Or German elections? Crazy. Russian election.
Russia, yeah.
Well, that's. I don't think we want Russians voting in U.S. elections. And I think it's time that we codify and clarify our state constitutions and the federal constitution to be more specific about this. Let's not make this have some judges from Ninth Circuit courts in other places, like in California, which is allowing to do it now. Let's make sure we can say loud and clear, U.S. elections shall be limited to U.S. citizens. One more thing. This sounds totally crazy, but it's from crazy California, crazy San Francisco, Kamala Harris's home city, Nancy Pelosi's home city. San Francisco last year spent $300,000 of taxpayer money to register and encourage non-citizens to legally vote in their elections.
I got to ask you, and you mentioned the Ninth Circuit. Is there any sort of state of play in the federal courts over this issue?
Well, there really isn't. I mean, there isn't in one aspect, which is right now these places are doing it using that phrase, every citizen shall be an elector, being an inclusive phrase. It doesn't say non-citizens can't vote. It just says citizens can. Right. So that's the phrase that they're driving a big truck right through to allow this to happen. So by taking it and making it so abundantly clear, just 2 words, strike every, put in only a citizen. Even a Ninth Circuit judge can figure out what that means.
Yeah, you would like to think so. You're being very charitable to the Ninth Circuit. So just to wind down here, in addition to go get a .vote email address, but folks can reach out to you guys.
Citizen voters, plural, citizenvoters.vote. Go there. You can see where we're active. You can look at all the states, click on your own state, see what's going on in your own state. If nothing's going on in your home state, give us a call. We would love to have your help. The more places we can get this to the ballot in 2020, it is a combination of good policy and great politics. It's exactly what we need, and it is about time that we say to everyone, in the United States, our elections shall be limited to our citizens.
Well, Tim, keep in touch with me because I definitely think this is something that should be pushed through the Georgia legislature this coming year, and I'm certainly happy to talk about it on the radio.
That'd be great.
I'm definitely willing to do that. I don't want to keep you on stage for the sake of keeping you on stage. Is there anything else you want to add here?
No, just congratulations to Eric and Red State for a fantastic conference.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank you for coming, Tim.